Okay, we have with us in the studio Jacky Hart. Of course, you've been here before for the Exclusive Brethren update we did. I think it was last year, wasn't it?
Yes, I have, yes.
Yes, and you're back with some pretty incendiary news for us.
Yeah, a lot's been happening. Where shall I start?
I think what we're going to do is we're going to start with the 1-hour program, Cults and Taboos. Yes, and this was a program which is an offshoot of the Cults and Extreme Belief.
That's right, yes.
Which is already aired in America and did quite well.
Yes.
And what happened was that they got in contact with Alexandra Stein, who, of course, we've had on the show many times. She wanted to get in touch with me, and she got in touch with me, and she said, do you know anyone who might want to appear on this program? And I suggested you. Mm-hmm. Because, of course, you grew up in the Exclusive Brethren.
Yeah.
And for anyone who doesn't know, this is a isolationist sect which started in Britain, has its headquarters, I think, in Australia. Is that right?
Yeah, the leader lives in Australia, yes.
Yes, and since you've left, you've been an activist helping people to leave, those who want to leave.
Yes, those who want to. Yeah, well, basically it was an hour programme featuring different totalitarian groups, not just the Brethren. And there was a feature that myself and one other ex-member did that in total, in the hour programme, would have been about 4 or 5 minutes viewing altogether. And obviously the Exclusive Brethren were given a right to reply. And instead of a right to reply, the television company received a very strong letter threatening legal action if it went ahead for libel. The time frame between getting the programme aired and when the letter was received was not long enough to get together the evidence to arrive at an agreement to air it. So the producers had to take the decision not to air it rather than risk getting sued. But you were left very, very much with a feeling it was a silencing act, using the law to silence. In my opinion, they'd have been far better to have just given a right to reply that would have been read out at the end of the programme, just like any other programme that featured about them.
And so they were accusing you of libel?
Yes, not me, the other ex-member they were accusing. Or they said a lot of what was said was libellous and that they would not hesitate to pursue that if the programme went ahead.
And this is strange because there have been programmes about the Brethren before.
Yeah, I mean, I featured in one before that was a whole hour about the Brethren, not just 4 or 5 minutes. And again, the Brethren were given a right to reply, and they replied, and their right to reply was read out at the end. And that was it. So it was odd.
Interesting. It sounds like they've been learning from the Scientologists.
Yeah,
I would think they very much have so, yes.
I think that's hit the nail on the head there.
Very much so. I know in the past that I don't know if they still do, but in the past when the Brethren have had need for public relation exercises, they've used the same company that the Church of Scientology have used. That is in the past. Whether that's still current or not, I don't know.
I know they don't watch much worldly television, but perhaps they've been watching Leah Remini's program and got a few ideas.
I hope they have. Yeah, I do hope they have. But yes, it's very much an attempt to not get people to speak out in any shape or form.
So do you think this footage isn't ever going to see the light of day?
I don't think this footage will ever see the light of day, no.
What a shame.
Yeah, I don't think it will.
It was really because the people who made the show thought this isn't worth it.
It was more that in the time frame they had, which was about 1 week, to have got the evidence to show that what was said was not libel, and then presented it to the Brethren, and then got the Brethren to agree that they wouldn't sue because actually this isn't libel. You couldn't have done it in the time frame.
Because they did. I did read they did have liability insurance, so they
yes.
could have gone ahead. It was
absolutely, yes, they could have done. But it was, if they had gone ahead without the right to reply, and if you like the Brethren's agreement, they would have been sued. And I think the feeling was for 4 or 5 minutes viewing, at that point it wasn't worth it.
Right. So this show has it aired already?
Yes, it aired in November last year.
Okay, without this section or even any mention of it?
No mention of the Brethren at all, or any of the filming we did.
And the other option, of course, was to fight back and argue at every little point.
Yes.
But we can confirm from people we know,
yes,
including yourself, that they are a separationist cult.
Yeah.
And they do separate people. I mean, there's untold amounts of testimony to this.
Yes, untold amounts. And families are split up because of their separationist principles. And the ex-member that spoke up had just that happen to them. They'd lost their children. Or some of them, not all, 3 of their children.
Yeah.
And there's a very interesting quote from the producer, who you were, of course, in contact with during the making of this show. after all this had happened?
She was quite shocked because she's been working in television for 21 years. And she said in all that time, she's been working in documentary making and trying to give people platforms to tell their stories. And she said in all that time, she had never, ever received a letter like that, or indeed have any threatening action like that in 21 years.
Gosh.
So I think she was pretty shocked by it.
But have the Brethren just succeeded in making another very angry enemy?
Highly likely. Highly likely, yes.
Do you think it's counterproductive, all this?
Yes, I do, because if I were a TV producer and I got a letter like that when all I'd done is ask for a right to reply for 4 or 5 minutes of something I was showing in a documentary, my immediate reaction would be, there must be a bigger story here.
What have they got to hide,
yes,
basically?
Exactly. So I do think it may have been counterproductive. Everyone
who watches the Leah Remini show and sees they have a right to reply. You see these blocks of text. We got a letter about this show, and it comes up on the screen, and it just looks like, liar, liar, pants on fire. They obviously do have something to hide.
Absolutely. Otherwise, if they didn't have anything to hide, they would have been quite happy to give, as with the previous documentary that we were involved in, there was a letter countering what had happened and saying it's, that we're all fine. And that was read out at the end by an actor's voice. And that was fine.
Are these lawyers' brethren? Or
No. Okay. No, there won't be any lawyers in the Brethren simply because education at that level is not allowed. Okay. So firstly, you couldn't educate to the level of being a lawyer or a barrister. And secondly, you would not be allowed to belong to the lawyers' register. So any lawyers, doctors, professionals they use would be not Brethren.
I was just going to say that, I totally agree with what you say about there's a story to be had here, and producers are going to be digging around now. I mean, you don't need to look at the Louis Theroux Scientology episodes, the views they got. And that's only because of the way they treated him. Yeah. He wouldn't have gone back for him a second time.
Absolutely. if they'd been quite open and transparent with him, he'd have thought, there's nothing here, wouldn't he? And off he goes. So.
Are you aware of any other documentaries they're attempting to make that are getting the same type of treatment?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Letters from lawyers and so on and so forth?
I'm aware of letters from lawyers, but I'm not aware of any other documentaries that are being tried to be silenced in that way. There may be, but not that I'm aware of. Yeah.
So is there any chance that perhaps they will screw it up in some way? Because they are not worldly people. I know they're hiring worldly lawyers. They're giving all the commands, as it were.
Yes.
Is it perhaps a chance that they're going down the wrong route and probably are shooting themselves in the foot?
I think so. Yes, I do think so, because their attempts to try and silence people by legal action seems to have got more acute in the last year or so, or maybe I'm more aware of it, I don't know, but whatever way, but their attempts do seem to have got more acute. But of course, the more you try and silence people, the more interested people get, as you said.
And without doubt, more people who have left the Brethren are going to be encouraged to speak up, aren't they? And in my mind, it's not a wise move to do in the middle of this charity commission that are looking at their charitable status.
Yes, exactly. Although from the Brethren's perspective, I think they think that's all done and dusted and there isn't a problem.
Oh, that's not done and dusted. This was just part one of the game. Now the National Secular Society are on
Absolutely.
To it as well.
Yes.
Yeah, this is just part one.
Yes, I don't think it will go away totally. No.
And again, for people who don't know, the Brethren, they think that they have to show that they're doing something charitable, something good for society, and really they weren't doing anything except for themselves. And now they go out in the street and they sort of yell Bible verses at people, and they think that's...
I mean,
can I correction? They don't. They yell hate speech at people.
You've listened to them, have you, Neil?
And you've let them know in no uncertain terms. Yes, which is why we don't
people in the high street.
We don't see them anymore around here.
They're going to burn to death.
Yes.
It's not very charitable.
No, it's not really. No, I mean, to summarise the issue there, they queried one particular Brethren trust whether they were there for public benefit. It produced the response you've said. They also, in response to that, set up their charitable arm, which is called the Rapid Relief Team. And the Rapid Relief Team do charitable works very, very selectively, I would say.
This sounds very familiar. I think Scientology and Jehovah's Witnesses have something very similar with similar names.
Yeah. And it's a, when I see the Rapid Relief Team out if they're helping it. And what they tend to do, if you look at their brief, they will go into somewhere where there's been a disaster or a catastrophe, for example, the Grenfell Tower, and they will provide the emergency services with food and so on. I don't condemn them for that at all, because actually often the people who are actually making these burgers and providing them are the young people in the Brethren, and I'm all for that. Get them out there, let them talk to, let them be part of what's happening in the world. That is fantastic. What I find a little bit difficult is if those young people did leave, they would cut them off from their families. So it's the hypocrisy of it, but not the actual people doing the work. I think the actual people doing the work of the rapid relief team on the ground, I think it's very good for them.
Yeah.
Because they're out there mixing with people.
And I've got to make a correction, because since they like suing people, I accidentally said they said people would burn to death. What I actually meant to say is obviously they would burn for eternity.
Yes.
I better make a correction.
Just in case, eh? Just in case.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. Well, we're going to go on to something else. This is similar because this also has to do with aggressive litigation, and that is with the Defense Against Religious Extremists, which is otherwise known as DARE, run by Ian MacKay. Can you tell us a bit about that?
The DARE is actually not run by Ian MacKay, it's run by another ex-member. Okay. I don't want to get you into any more trouble. It's actually run by another ex-member. Basically, that particular campaign, there is an ex-member of the Brethren, Dr. Ian MacKay, who used to be a lecturer at Glasgow University. He left the Brethren many years ago in 1969. And in his retirement, he has been extremely helpful to ex-members generally. And he's also researched the Brethren on demographics, really, numbers, and analysed them and so on. And he's got a lot of archives of what the Brethren call ministry. Now, ministry, or the helpful ministries they call them, is something that's been produced ever since printing came into effect, and it's basically printed word of usually the leader at the time. And they print them, the Brethren buy them, and they read them. So effectively it's their preaching of the week or the preaching of the day. And I remember certainly when I was in the Brethren, you paid your subscription to the printing arm of the Brethren that produced this. And every week you'd get what they'd call a little white book, and that would be the preachings of the leader of the day that you should read. And then every month you'd get a brown book, which was a collection of preachings and so on. And it's all about being current and keeping up to date with the ministries. Now, the ministries have been out for many years and been produced, and Ian has researched them and read them and so on. Wikipedia, which we've mentioned before, he's made quotations from the ministries. He's made them accurately and he's acknowledged copyright, and those quotations were made for purposes of critique, review, discussion, which under copyright law, I believe you can actually...
Sounds like fair usage to me.
Yeah, under copyright law.
And Wikipedia is the website set up for people who want to leave the Brethren.
Yes, that's right. And there's a section under the forums called Extracts of Brethren Ministry. And I have to say, Dr. Mackay, Ian isn't the only one who has quoted ministry on there. It's a discussion forum about the ministry and so on. Yep. He received a court summons last autumn to the High Court in Scotland under copyright law. They are claiming £100,000 from him and taking him straight to the High Court in Scotland, saying that he's breached copyright in putting those ministry quotes online. Now, whether he has breached copyright or not, that's not decided. It's, I mean,
it's going to be down for the courts.
Yeah, that's for the court, so I can't really pass comment on that. But it seems fair use of copyright for the reasons he was using it. The biggest issue we all had with this is the body taking him to court was the Bible and Gospel Trust, who are the publishing arm of the Brethren, who are a registered charity. So their function as a charity is to produce Bibles, the Gospel tracts that I believe you've picked up at certain times. The little white tracts. They produce those. They produce hymn books. They produce Bibles. They have backdated ministry and so on. And they actually get the transcripts, I believe, of the meetings, and they print them up for the Brethren. As a non-Brethren member, it's quite hard for you to buy anything from the Bible and Gospel Trust. So in other words, they state that they produce this gospel literature at a fair rate to subscribers. But if you or I went on the website and wanted to subscribe to get this literature, you can't.
Right.
So they only effectively produce it for the Brethren.
So they're very possessive of it, in other
Yes,
words. Or at least that's the angle they're taking.
Yes, they're very, very possessive of it. It seems a bit of an enigma to me that they are protesting about something being in the public domain that was said in a place of public religious worship. Because, of course, everything that's printed in the ministries was said in one of their meeting halls, which is a place of public religious worship. So it seems a bit of an enigma to me that they're worried about that being quoted online for discussion purposes.
And as you say, they go out on the high street and give out these little tracts as well.
Yeah. So
you'd think they want the word to get out.
You would
have thought so.
That would be your normal assumption, wouldn't
you would
it?
assume they want to get the word out, but there's currently only 17,000 members in the UK and 14,000 in Australia, according to this article. So maybe they don't want to get the word out.
Maybe they don't.
Not on an apostate site, anyway.
Yeah. And I think from the Brethren's perspective, things are said by the leader in meetings that, if you read, it's on the Wikipedia forum, but are not particularly acceptable in today's society. So I think that's the problem as well. That's the word they don't want to get out, I suspect. The net result of this court summons, if it goes to court, it could basically take everything Ian's got because of the costs of it, everything. It hasn't gone to court yet. As a charity, the charity guidance on law is quite clear. You don't take legal action unless you absolutely have to. And when you do, it should be proportionate to what's happened. So in other words, because you'd be using charitable money to obviously defend against any legal action or to bring any legal action, you have to be careful how you do it. Charity law and the guidelines also say that before you consider, as a trustee, before you consider legal action, all other forms of reconciliation have to be considered, and that includes negotiation where the two parties talk and mitigation where the two parties talk through an intermediary.
We're suing someone for £100,000 for putting 15 quotes on a forum.
Is that proportionate?
Someone's going to be judging that very shortly.
So yeah, it's been a very, very difficult time for Ian, obviously, not knowing what's going to happen. There was a suggestion of mediation. I believe the Bible and Gospel Trust have now agreed to mediation. All you can say about that is it's ongoing. That's all we can say.
But it's also seeking damages for moral prejudice.
Yes, it is. Yes.
They've suffered pain.
I'm not quite sure how they're going to prove that, but yes, they are. And I believe they said they couldn't quantify the extent of the moral prejudice until they know the extent of the copyright. And they've also asked Ian Mackay to reveal part of the court order, which is a public document. So they've asked him to reveal all his sources. So that sounds like...
So do they make members sign a non-disclosure?
They have to sign a copyright agreement, and I believe now, I'm not certain of my facts on this, so I'll have to be careful, but I believe there's been talk that if somebody leaves, they have to hand all the ministry back. I don't know if that actually happens, but there's certainly...
It's impossible to manage, even if they wanted to, isn't it?
They can't manage it. Somebody leaves tomorrow, they've got a room full of ministry books.
Yes.
And they're theirs by rights. They've bought them. They subscribe to the Bible and Gospel Trust, and they've actually bought them. You know?
It's what happens to Scientologists. Yeah. They have all this stuff which they're required to buy, which is hundreds of books, and they're stuck with them.
Yeah, and I'm guessing some of these quotes, when they're out on the high street doing their preaching, they would have been using some of these quotes if they're
actually not. No, because if you actually read the quotes on Wikipedia, you'll see
why. They don't want people to know. I haven't been on.
There's the public face of the Brethren, which you will see on the high street, and then there's the quotes on the Wikipedia website, which are "This is only for us" ministry.
Can you give us a flavour of what those are?
I can't remember it word for word, but it's in the public domain. Okay. But there are certain quotes about, and I'm not quoting this word for word, but the leader who has now died, that was the predecessor to the current one, made some quite derogatory comments about women being equal to men's, given all the problems in the world. I can't remember the actual words, but so these are things they wouldn't want out there. I was actually reading one of them today, and the current leader was saying things like young brothers must marry when the order comes. Things like so they're things that
they're really protective about this, though, because American evangelicals would quite happily say this out in church and make videos of it and put it out, selling the point.
It's almost like they are ashamed of it.
Absolutely. And that's what I don't get. As you say, if that's your belief, that's okay. Nobody's knocking your belief. We don't have to agree with it.
Yeah.
But if that's what you really believe, shout it from the rooftops.
Yeah.
If you want to.
I think the more people know what these people believe, the better.
Yeah,
personally.
exactly. I agree with you. Totally, Neil.
Is it sort of a protective nature, considering they're isolationists? This is our stuff.
Interestingly, I recently went to a country that used to be a communist country, and we had a tour. And the tour guide passed a throwaway comment that stuck with me. And he said, of course, being a communist country, everybody outside was an enemy. And I think it's that attitude. And I think they make themselves stronger by making everybody outside the enemy. We mustn't let them know what goes on. We've got this wonderful thing. It's all a big secret. We mustn't let them know.
But they do look at us like that anyway.
Well, they
especially
do.
those
Yes,
who were born in, Jacky,
Yes.
and left.
Totally.
Especially.
Yeah. Especially. We are the enemy in their eyes. I agree with that. But I think if you're in it, there is this culture of this helpful ministry, which is what they actually call it, is kind of very special to us. And we mustn't let it get out there. And I think that almost, in a sense, unifies them, whether it's right or not. But I do think that's what happens.
I mean, that is human nature, though,
It is
isn't
human
it?
nature.
To join groups and try to keep secrets, and
Yes.
we're part of a club.
Yeah, and we've got this
and
special
othering-
thing.
Othering, we're very
Our
good at
sacred
that as a
stuff, we don't
species.
want it in the hands
That's
of the
right.
apostates.
Yes, that's right. And I think that's it. And I think that helps their feeling that we're a community, the isolationist feeling and everything else.
I think it's part of the reason they don't understand the outside world as well, and especially maybe the atheist communities in there, because they don't understand that we don't have these
Yeah.
clubs that we're
Yes.
part of, so
Yeah.
they don't know how to handle us.
That's right. Well, what they don't understand is actually you can totally disagree with somebody and their views, but that doesn't mean you don't like them and you won't sit and have a cup of tea with them. That's the
There's
bit
one
they
or two
don't
issues.
understand.
There's one or two issues.
Because they literally do not believe in having a cup of tea with somebody
No, they
who's
literally
not
don't.
a brethren.
That's
No.
a real shame.
Yeah, no, eating and drinking is a big no-no. It has been said that if it was a business meeting, that is okay to have a cup of coffee, but it's a big no-no. And it is their big thing, and that's relatively recent in Brethren history, and that was introduced late 50s, early 60s, so it's a relatively recent thing. But that is their big thing, that they won't eat and drink with anyone they don't share the Lord's Supper with.
Yeah, we did ask someone on the high street to
Did you
come
ask
for a cup
them?
of tea with us. He literally ran.
Yes. Yeah, they would. And
And
probably
has not come back.
that has not come back. And the person you asked probably has been brought up with that, so doesn't remember a time when it was different. And it would be, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so if anyone wants to help out Ian Mackay, they can go to the GoFundMe.com page.
That's right, yes. So, yes, another ex-member has very kindly set up this webpage. Any donations are gratefully received. £1, £100, whatever you can spare. Simply, we are trying to raise money to help Ian with his legal fees. We do not know whether this is going to go to court. I'm not involved with the fund myself. Somebody else is managing that. We do not know whether this is going to go to court or whether mediation will work. If it doesn't go to court and there are spare funds, trust me, they'll be put to good use. There are plenty of other needy ex-Brethren members who need them. If it does go to court, it will help enormously, because the costs of it are likely to be astronomical. Because it's being listed straight in the High Court, the costs are likely to be astronomical.
Right.
And the Bible and Gospel Trust have done this twice before. They did it to the very first ex-Brethren website that was set up by a gentleman in America. They did the same with him. I can't remember all the details of the case without looking it up, but they settled out of court. Another website called peebs.net emerged as a result of that. That was a gentleman in Canada.
Does that still exist?
No,
No.
because they had to settle that out of court. They tried to get him for copyright. So you've got a charity here that's spending an awful lot of money on trying to silence their critics, it appears.
And they have a lot of money, don't they?
Apparently so.
Well, of course, this article, the leader is a multimillionaire.
That's Bruce Hales, isn't
Bruce
it?
Hales, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a very wealthy man.
Gosh.
Not the first time we've heard that.
No,
Leaders of-
no, wealthy leaders of a very exclusive totalitarian group. It's nothing unfamiliar about that. Yeah.
Well, there's been 250 people already support Ian's cause.
Yeah.
So, as you said, we can go to GoFundMe to help him, or you can search it, Support Ian Mackay Against Religious Extremism.
Absolutely.
And we will definitely put the link
Thank
in
you.
the description.
Thank
and
you.
also for Wikipedia as well, in case anyone is
Yes.
listening like they have done with our shows before.
Yes.
And who are in the Brethren and want to leave and are not quite sure how. There's a big red button at the top of the Wikipedia page. You just touch that and it will get you to somebody who can contact
help.
you
Yes.
discreetly.
Yes. And also on the Wikipedia, if people are interested in the actual case, they can actually read the extracts of Brethren Ministries. There's quite a lot of reading, but if anyone's interested, that's on the same website.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling this won't be our final update with you,
I don't
Jacky.
think it will. I don't think it will. In many ways, I hope it isn't.
6-monthly thing,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I hope it isn't.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming in
You're
and
welcome.
updating us. Thank you to Neil for coming along as well, as always. And we will see you next time.
Thank you, Mark.